Alright, this video is going to focus on understanding the restrictions on acute and obtuse angles, and more specifically, the restrictions on x when my angle measure is an expression with a variable. First thing I think we have to review are our inequality symbols. The difference between a less than and a greater than symbol. A less than symbol points to the left. Less than points left. It almost looks like an L. Greater than symbol points to the right. Think of it as saying my measure of my angle is less than the smaller of whatever the value is, or the measure of my angle is greater than. One thing I don't think we need to review too much is the difference or the restrictions on our actual angles. If my angle is acute, it must be greater than 0 degrees, so again my greater than symbol, and less than 90 degrees. Obtuse is greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. These do not have the or equal to lines underneath, because a right angle is exactly equal to 90 degrees, and straight angle is exactly equal to 180 degrees. Inequality symbols for acute and obtuse, equal signs for right and straight. Now let's get to the more specific problems. In these restriction problems, they'll say something along these lines. Angle A is an acute angle. If the if the measure of angle A is equal to 12x minus 6 degrees, what are the restrictions on x? We have to utilize first and foremost this statement to go ahead and say, okay, it's acute. It has these two restrictions. The measure of my angle A is greater than 0 degrees, and the measure of angle A is less than 90 degrees. The second thing I do is substitute. Instead of measure of angle A here and over there, I'm using 12x minus 6. So not measure of angle A, that's going away, but the measure of angle A is 12x minus 6. That's greater than 0. And then the same thing for this one, except it's less than 90. It's my 12x minus 6, not the measure of angle A, 12x minus 6. Same thing, those two are equal. I'm not done. I now have to solve. Add 6 to both sides, so I treat my inequality symbol just like an equal sign. I bring it straight down. 12x is greater than 6. Divide by 12. X is greater than 1/2 or 0.5. And I do the same thing on the right. Add 6. 12x is less than 96. Divide by 12. Might need my calculator. X is less than, you go ahead and calculate, 8. Those are the restrictions on 8. Now a lot of people say, well, that doesn't make sense. I don't quite understand what we're doing. Remember what we're saying here. I have angle A, and all I know is that it is acute. And it's 12x minus 6 degrees. I know that the angle has to be bigger than 0. If it were less than 0, it would be negative. We know what negative angles. And an angle has to be less than 90. If it were more than 90, it would be obtuse. So I need to figure out what value of x would put this ray somewhere here. Okay? This would make it 90. So my ray has to be somewhere in between here. So if I substitute 1/2 into here, I get 0. That's why x has to be bigger than 1/2. Because if it's bigger than 1/2, then the angle is bigger than 0. If I substitute 8 in here, I get 90. That's why x has to be less than 8. Because if it's 8, it's 90. Less than 8, it would be less than 90. So somewhere in between 1/2 and 8, my ray would always be falling in between this, keeping it as an acute angle. The process, the idea is the same for number 2, obtuse. I will start it with you. This means that the measure of angle B is greater than 90 and the measure of angle B is less than 180 degrees. It's now a problem involving substitution. Substitute this in for measure of angle B, because angle B is this obtuse angle over here. It's 6x plus 72 degrees. So x, whatever x is, has to make sure that my angle is bigger than that, making it 90, but also less than that, keeping that second ray in this range. X has to make sure that happens. Okay, so I make it 6x plus 72 is bigger than 90. 6x plus 72 is less than 180. I have to solve both of those. Go ahead and press pause, solve them both to check your answer. Okay, so we should get x is greater than 3 and x is less than 18. Greater than 3 ensures that the angle is bigger than 90, since I solved that inequality. So that makes sure that my angle, this second ray, is to the left, in this case of this diagram, in this direction of my 90, making sure it's obtuse. But then I can't keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It has to stop somewhere, and that's at 18. Once I hit 18, I get a straight angle. Makes this 180, and it has to be less than 18 to ensure that it stays between 90 and 180.